roses, and it's just $10 more. 1-800-Flowers.com. Enter the code HERD. So I thought about something this morning about, I like free stuff. One of the things about California, the beach is free. It's a great beach, and it's free. Every time I go to the beach, I'm always like, it's free. It's like free entertainment all day.
Well, taxes would argue otherwise, but yeah.
Well, I mean, there's taxes.
You don't have to pay to get on the beach, yeah.
Yeah, it's free. And it's like, you have to pay, like when I lived out east, everything cost money. I always felt like everything cost money. But I get all this good weather, and it's free. I don't get snow. I don't get sleet. I rarely get rain. I don't get humidity. It's free. And I like free stuff. I mean, you ask anybody, if somebody gives me a free coffee cup, it just makes my day. I just love free stuff. And one of the things I obsess about, I talk a lot about, is I'm not loyal to platforms. I'm just going to evolve and adapt, and whatever platform's growing, podcasting, television, radio, I'll just go to the platform. I'm not going to be loyal to a newspaper if I'm a newspaper writer, if newspapers are dying. The great thing about adapting, it's free. And I was thinking about it this weekend. Andy Reid is 62. Bruce Arians is 68. Nick Saban's 69. What makes Nick Saban great is he adapted. It's free. He just said, you know what? The game's changing. I'm going to run a spread offense. That would have sounded ridiculous 6 years ago for Nick Saban. Andy Reid doesn't have one of these old systems. You know, Andy Reid and John Gruden were on the same Packers staff with Mike Holmgren. Gruden still runs old school football, power football. Andy Reid, running game is often a rumor. One guy's been a better adapter and evolver, Andy Reid. Nothing against Gruden. Gruden's 10 years younger. But when I look at Andy Reid, he was the first coach in the NFL. It's free. Evolving and adapting is free. And here's the crazy thing about it. If you evolve and adapt as an older person, it makes you younger. If you evolve and adapt as a younger person, it actually makes you older. Because if my son's 14 years old, he's very techie. He's into anything techie. It makes him seem older and smarter. He's got more wisdom because he pursues all these opportunities. Anything else in America, everybody's trying to sell you a pill to make you stronger and younger and older, and adapting is the answer. It's free. Andy Reid, with all these young coaches, is the wizard. McVay's out. LaFleur's out. Zach Taylor didn't make it. Cliff Kingsbury didn't make it. Kyle Shanahan didn't make the playoffs. Here's Andy. And it's all because of one thing, and it was free. He just evolved and adapted. I can remember I was at the other place. This is probably more than 10 years ago. It's probably about almost 15 years ago. And I lived in the Northeast out in Connecticut by Philadelphia. And you can hear the Eagle fans yell from Connecticut. And I started saying, yeah, this Andy Reid guy, I didn't know anything about him. And I'm like, he's the first coach in the NFL that on 3rd and 2 considers it a passing down. And I'm like, we always give Belichick credit for all his innovations. But I'm like, this Andy Reid guy, like Philadelphia is like a tough guy town. You run the football. Andy was the first guy in the league 15 years ago. It was like 3rd and 2 is a passing down. He just didn't have the quarterbacks to win Super Bowls, although he kept winning the NFC over and over and over. And when anybody is stubborn and rigid, I'm always like, do you understand the thing that can take years off your life or add years is all free? Just adapt. And that is what Andy Reid, that's why he's here. He's 62. He coaches younger than John Gruden, who's 56, 57. And I like Gruden, but he's very old school. It's very power football. I was talking to an NFL player this weekend, and it was Greg Olson. And we talked about this at length off the air, and I don't want to get into too many specifics, but he said running's kind of nonsense. He says these coaches that want to tell you we got to run 30, 40 times, he's like, Colin, all the rules are to throw the ball. You can't stop good receivers. You just can't. There's nothing you can do. You can't touch them. You can't grab them. You can't hold them. You can't hit the quarterback. You can hit running backs all day long, and they don't last. A good receiver, Larry Fitzgerald, lasts 15 years or more. You can't touch him. You can't grab him. You can't push him. You can't hit him high. You can't barely hit him. And it's just the reality of football right now that I look at Andy Reid. And again, Bruce Arians, in the middle of a season, had to adapt. His no biscuit unless you risk it offense was not working with Brady. He had to adapt. 69-year-old Nick Saban 5 years ago. We're going to go to spread offense. I've got to adapt. Andy Reid 15 years ago. 3rd and 2 is a passing down. I've got to adapt. I don't know why more people don't do it. I don't understand why people get rigid. We've said this. What COVID has really done, it's unraveled rigid people. If you're a rigid, you have a mantra, this is the only way I do stuff, this has been a rough year. A rough year for you. This is the year where you got to make crap up and you got to do the best with what you got. This is the year in our life.
Weren't you saying last week that you like to change your opinion based off of new information?
Yeah.
And I told you that's a sign of intelligence.
Thank you.
I mean, it is. It is. Like, you would consider Andy Reid and Nick Saban.
Smart.
Very smart.
But LeBron James, the last 6 years, I watched LeBron last night. He's so good. He's still the best player, physically, emotionally, a rock every night. Last 6 years, his three-point attempts have gone up every year. So think about that. What's that mean? It means the game was moving away from LeBron. So I'm old enough. I watched LeBron's first game in his first year. I remember when LeBron used to be on the air doing games, my first 4 or 5 years talking about LeBron. I used to say this all the time. He's boring. He's boring. He's a freight train. He just runs everybody over. He's just a better physical specimen. Kobe's game was artistic. Shaq was funny. All these guys, these great players. Dwayne Wade was a little guy that played big. LeBron just was bigger, faster, stronger, and didn't have any nuance. And then LeBron, the game moved away from him. And it also moved away from Westbrook. It moved away from Westbrook. It's not about athleticism. Can you shoot jumpers? Steph Curry's not a top 25 athlete. Westbrook, rigid personality. My game's my game. LeBron, I'm going to shoot more threes. And I'm watching last night, first quarter. LeBron is jacking up 27-footers. He literally last night had one of those where he shoots it and doesn't even look. Like, he's become a great three-point shooter. And again, he just evolved. He just keep. I tell people all the time in my space, don't be loyal to platforms. They're changing. So change with them.
One thing that is certain in life is change.
Be able to deal with it.
But you can see that in people all the time. Like, insisting on the same thing year after year. It's like, okay, I mean, then that's what's going to define you, is that you did that. Okay. All of these guys are doing the same thing, and they're all lasting.
Okay, so I was thinking of one more thing. Peter King next hour, I was thinking of one more thing. So I won't get into Kansas City Bills yet. I'll do that next hour. But I was thinking about the call for Matt LaFleur when they go for the field goal and instead of going for it. Now, analytics mean something. But analytics don't tell you, they can't judge football playoffs like March Madness. It's sudden death, it's 1-1. We know this to be true. Some players shrink in those moments. Some golfers, Tiger Woods never lost a lead in a major. I think that was the record for 10 years. He never shrunk on a Sunday. Greg Norman shrunk, Nick Faldo, there are a number of guys. Some athletes, the great ones, rise in these moments. Others shrink. Analytics can't tell you anything. And so analytics would tell you the Packers' move, which was to kick a field goal, and the Bills' multiple field goals, analytics tell you those are the right moves. So, in fact, let me start with Kansas City Buffalo. But what analytics don't tell you is that when you face an all-time dynasty, you have to give up a little of yourself. When you face KD, Steph, and Clay, you had to shoot more threes. And when you face the Chiefs, you have to give up a little of yourself. They're an all-time dynasty. You do have to chase points because they're going to score. Dan Wetzel wrote an article today. It's very interesting. Dan Wetzel's article today, he said, this isn't your grandfather's NFL. The first 25 NFC championship games of the Super Bowl era averaged 32 points. The last 7, 55. And Kansas City's the best offense of the last 25 years. It's the most effortless scoring offense. So Buffalo, whatever the analytics say, when you face the Chiefs, you got to give up a little of yourself. You do have to chase points. And I know that goes against all the analytics and all the mantras, but analytics cannot describe the Chiefs. We've never seen that. In the Green Bay Packers situation, we know that Aaron Rodgers can be prickly. The organization doesn't have an owner. Aaron just eye-rolled the last coach out of a job. Don't you go for it? Don't you hand it to Aaron? Don't you put it in his hands? So if he fails, there's no resentment, anger, bitterness, or post-game meltdown. Analytics don't tell you that Aaron can be aloof and prickly, even difficult for family members. Aaron's personality is unique and difficult. Analytics don't tell you that. I'm Matt LaFleur for self-preservation. Analytics don't tell you he ran McCarthy out of town. The GM told Aaron, according to a report, don't screw this next coach up. The meltdown after the game, analytics don't tell you that. Aaron's difficult. Great, but difficult. Put it in his hands. If you're a rigid, you have a mantra, this is the only way I do stuff, this has been a rough year. A rough year for you. This is the year where you got to make crap up and you got to do the best with what you got. This is the year in our life.
Weren't you saying last week that you like to change your opinion based off of new information?
Yeah.
And I told you that's a sign of intelligence?